Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Higurashi. So, we just hit the end of chapter 10, and Reina and Shion scared the living hell out of us and threatened, if we didn't keep quiet, basically that they would kill us. So, that's good. Um, what I was gonna do for this chapter, because I'm thinking within the next couple chapters it's gonna be, like, finished. I was gonna do a live stream, but I guess with my recording and stuff, like, it's just too much for my laptop. So I'm just gonna, like, not worry about it and just record like I always have been. So, maybe, one of these days when I get an actual, decent computer, I can do a live stream for you guys, and you guys can respond, and I think it'd be really fun. I could do it on Facebook, but I can't be playing a game and live streaming at the same time. I can do just me talking, I guess if you guys had questions or, like, game suggestions or something, you could drop them there, but, that'd be about it. But anyways, let's continue on with Higurashi. I'm scared. I really am. This was the first time I'd ever woke with such clarity. It was 5:59, just moments before my alarm would go off. I was amazed at the precision of my internal clock. I had made preparations for the next day of school before I went to bed. I changed quickly and descended to the deserted lower floor. It appeared that my mom was still asleep. Neither breakfast nor lunch was ready. Yesterday I just unilaterally decided that I would be leaving early today, so it couldn't be helped. I slathered jam on some bread and topped it with instant cocoa. Cocoa on top of jam, I don't know. I don't know about that, man. Just as I was finishing up breakfast, Mom rose groggily from her slumber. My Keiichi, you're up early. Is there some sort of school event? Not really. Answering bluntly, I picked up my bag and stood after stuffing 2 slices of bread down my throat. You're leaving already? What about lunch? If you don't wait a bit, I can't make it. If I waited for her to make my lunch, then it would end up being the same time as usual. If I did that, it would raise the chances of me running into Reina and Mion on the way. Yes, from today onwards, I was going to the school alone. I'll be fine for today. Then what will you do for lunch? I'll slip out and buy some bread or something at the store. Really? Then here's some lunch money. Be sure to bring back the receipt. I took the 1,000 yen bill from Mom and slipped it into my pocket. It's pretty early. Is Reina-chan up this early as well? No, just me. Did you tell Reina-chan that you're leaving early? I have no reason to tell her every little detail, now do I? Finding it difficult answering the onslaught of questions, I made an annoyed face. Tell Reina that I went ahead when she comes. Hey, Keiichi, wait! It's not that I didn't trust my parents. I just couldn't rely on them. They couldn't help me. I could only hope that they didn't get involved. It was safer that way. My mom's annoying voice was cut off by the slam of the door. For the first time since I moved here, I headed down the road to school alone. It's probably a good choice, to be honest. Up until now, I had always walked down the same path at the same time each day, so I always met with the same people at the same places, but today was different. I didn't meet the people I would normally, and nobody was at the places where I would have normally met them. Of course, Reina wasn't in the spot where we usually met, and there wasn't anyone on the spot where we would have met up with Mion. The length of the tree shadows, the morning air, and the brightness of the sun. It was a completely different type of morning from what I was used to. Without a doubt, it felt strange. It left me with the impression that I had destroyed the illusion Mizawa had set up for me before I had enough time to prepare all the props needed to deceive me. My, Keiichi-kun, you're so early today. Is everyone meeting early this morning? The person who called out to me was someone we always passed by as they were taking a walk along the edge of the fields. Their name was, I forgot. Of course, this wasn't the spot where we usually passed each other. I woke up early today, so I thought it would be a good change of pace. That's all. I threw out a random excuse. What about Reina-chan and Mion-chan? Are you by yourself today? Well, yeah. I was being asked the same type of questions my mom was asking, so I answered them in the same uninteresting, vague manner. It wasn't funny being asked where Reina was each time I passed by someone, but maybe it was to be expected. It was because for so long we were always together so amicably. Even I felt that if I let my guard down, we could still be friends. Stop it, Keiichi. Don't think about that anymore. You spent all day yesterday thinking about how dangerous it was to go soft, didn't you? Beep, beep. A car horn blared from out of nowhere. Even though I was walking lost in thought, that horn was way too close. A mechanical behemoth barreled at me from behind, catching me completely off guard. By the time I turned around, the man's honking Cassis was almost upon me. I'd seen plenty of cars veer to the opposite shoulder to avoid pedestrians, but this car was doing the opposite. It felt like it was somebody on the opposite shoulder and the van was swerving in my direction to avoid them. That blissfully ignorant train of thought delayed me from realizing something much, much more important. The large mass was hurtling right at me. Was it going to hit me? The inside of my head instantly flooded with a painfully cold liquid. In that moment, the scene before me, no time itself, had frozen. In the silence of that frozen moment, I compared the van, so close that I had no way to dodge it, and my body, the upper half twisted awkwardly in order to look behind me. There was no way I could dive out of the way in my current position. If I lost focus now, this moment would unpause, and I would probably be plowed over, caught in this silly pose. Bend my upper body over towards the patty by the side of the road. If I bent far enough, I'd get away with just being hit by the side view mirror. As soon as the thought crossed my mind, the temporal stasis was shattered by the deafening sound of the van. The side mirror struck my shoulder, sending me spiraling off through the air like a top, locked in my contorted position. Splash. Sent tumbling through the air, I crashed into the muddy patty by the side of the road. My entire body was soiled and drenched, but the choice I had made in that instant was unmistakably the best. I was covered in mud, but when the alternative was being hit by the car, it was the closest I could be to being unscathed. Rising out from the patty, I had enough in me to glare at the stopped van and yell profanities at the driver. I'm not sure if he was able to see me, but the van sped off suddenly. Wait, damn it! This is what they call a hit and run, wasn't it? I couldn't help but continue yelling out profanities. The disgrace from being covered in mud hurt me more than any physical wounds. I slogged through the mud patty and made my way back onto the road. This is a crime, goddammit. Shit, I'll track you down and sue you. If I go looking for a van, I'm sure to find it in this little village. The path I was on had rice paddies on either side, as it had become so narrow that one car could barely fit through. It wasn't a place you could tear full speed down in a car, let alone pass by pedestrians. Not only was it a narrow road, but the car just now was closer to my side of the road than the other when it passed me. Even as I cursed, I was desperately trying to suppress the dark cloud rolling up in me. This wasn't just a hit or run. This car just now was trying to run me over, wasn't it? Thinking back, I did feel like there had been a car creeping up on me slowly for a while. That's right, as soon as I parted ways with that person taking a walk, I had that feeling the whole time. If it had wanted to pass me, then I had no shortage of chances. Normally I would have felt suspicious and turned around sooner, but I was lost in thought and I was kicking myself for not realizing it was there sooner. And then, when the path became narrow and there was no one else in sight, he floored it. If I had hesitated for even a moment, the result would have been no laughing matter. As the adrenaline rush from nearly being run over subsided, the realization of just how terrifying the preceding events were sunk in. There was no doubt about it. That van was intentionally trying to hit me. A cold, vicious sweat seeped from my scalp and slid down my back before dribbling off. I struggled to avoid falling into a panic. There was still the possibility that this was really just an accident. Calm down, Keiichi, but also don't be so naive, Keiichi. Being that lax will get you killed next time. You need to always be on your toes. Don't give them any openings. If my enemy was really out to kill me, the next time they would use a much more reliable method. That time came and I was acting like I was now. I being covered in mud was the price I had paid for my own naivete. Covered in mud, but without injury. Not even a sprain. I guess this was what you would call the silver lining. I began walking away again, this time cautiously. I wouldn't even show a hint of carelessness. I had suspected only Reina and the others up until now. No, it was because I had suspected them that I had believed they were no other enemies. Uishi-san had said so, hadn't he? There was the possibility that all the families of the village were involved. Was I really mired so deeply in the situation that I had no choice but to try and carry on as usual? Wouldn't it be safest just to hold myself up in my house? The moment I abandoned my regular routine, everyone around me would have abandoned theirs as well. This is just too horrifying of a thought. I recall the tales Oishi-san told me, when Hinamizawa was still called Onigafuchi, a frightening tale of an entire village of demons hunting their prey, surrounding them and eating them alive. One must not interfere with the demons. One must pretend not to see it. The enemy were numerous, all the village families. The villagers with their unwavering faith in the curse would do nothing to help me. The strong, sudden flash of sunshine made me slightly dizzy. I had no idea what was going on anymore. When I suspected it was the work of man, I would catch a glimpse of Oyashiro-sama's curse. When I suspected it was Oyashiro-sama's curse, someone would poke their head out. What was coincidence? What was intentional? Who was my enemy? Who was just a bystander? No, what I really, truly wanted to know was, how did I end up with the proverbial bullseye painted on my back? Eventually, an answer in a form I can understand will appear. I don't care when that will happen, because until then, I cannot die. That alone fueled my resolve to fight, and will keep me alive. Whew. You have met an unfortunate fate, haven't you, Keiichi? I remember seeing the metal bat in the gym storage shed, but there was a padlock on the door barring my entry. At the very least, I wanted to get my hands on it before everyone else arrived at school. I circled around the school grounds impatiently. But all I could find were things like pieces of lumber, nothing that I could easily bring into the classroom. Then, I had an epiphany. I should search inside the classroom. If it was something in the classroom to begin with, then there wouldn't be a problem. I could tell that everyone's indoor shoes were still in their lockers. Good thing I came early. Nobody else was here yet. I wondered, what could I find in the classroom? I didn't think I could find an especially effective weapon like the bat, but it couldn't be helped at this point. Until the gym storage shed was open, I needed to find a substitute. A lingering hint of naivete whispered that there was no way I'd be attacked at school. But such soft ideas would no longer protect me. To think that they were slowly making their way into parts of my life that I had once thought impenetrable. In the worst case, my own house might not be safe anymore. That was an incredibly frightening thought. But I believed that not considering the worst-case scenario would have been even more frightening. Anyways, I will survive. So long as I lived, then I will definitely be able to escape this labyrinth of nonsense. Definitely. My exploration of the classroom came to an impasse. Much was to be expected. There was no way there would be anything that could be a weapon in the classroom. In case of emergency, there was probably nothing I could do but swing my own chair around. My gaze landed on the lockers that had come to be used for personal storage. The locker that Mion used to store her pile of games was among them. There was one for each person in the class, all lined up. Of course, there was one for me as well. Oh yeah, there was supposed to still be a tracksuit in my locker. Seeing me covered in mud would be strange. I should go change later. But first, I needed a weapon. When my classmates came, it would be hard to rummage through all the lockers. I swiftly began opening the lockers one by one. They were mostly just filled with things like gym clothes, personal items, umbrellas. An umbrella? If I could find anything better, then this would have to be my weapon. I was about to give up on finding anything decent when I opened the locker that held exactly what I wanted. It was, without a doubt, a metal bat. It was well worn and pretty beaten up, but there was no doubt it was usable. In that locker that reeked of mold, there also hung a baseball uniform. It's probably the locker of a student in a Pee-wee league or something like that. If that was the case, then he'd probably ask for it back. At the time, I could hear the voices of the children scuffling their way noisily in from the hallway. Amongst them, I could make out Rika-chan and Satoko. Good morning. My, you're quite early this morning, Keiichi-san. I nonchalantly hid the bat I was holding behind my back. What is with your outfit? You're covered in mud. Yeah, I had a little accident. I'm going to change now, so cut me some slack. That said, I began taking off my clothes. Satoko began to blush just as I expected her to. Changing in front of a lady! Have you no tact at all? I would think that a lady staring at someone who was changing would be the one lacking in tact. There's no changing room for the boys, so just deal with it. As Satoko feigned disgust, she went into the hall, still blushing. Conversely, Rika-chan continued to stare at me, preparing to change. If Rika-chan is a lady as well, then I don't think it would be appropriate for you to be watching. I'm not a lady, so it's fine. She deliberately pouted and looked at me with upturned eyes. Then, starting now, you're a lady. If I'm a lady, then I suppose I must. Rika-chan, appearing to be satisfied with being considered a lady, made her way to join Satoko in the hallway. I love Rika, she's so cute. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, Rika-chan stopped suddenly and turned back towards me. Are you going to start playing baseball? Seems that Rika-chan had noticed the bat. Yeah, just, I was feeling a bit out of shape, so I thought I'd just try practicing my swing. I think it's wonderful you taking care of your health. She was talking like an old lady, despite her appearance. After saying that, Rika-chan started to leave again, but stopped and looked back at me once more. Please don't lose that bat. Seems she already knew I took it out of someone's locker. There was no name on the locked door. I didn't know whose bat it was, but I would be borrowing it until they complained. It wouldn't be for long, just until the gym storage shed was opened. After quickly changing into the tracksuit, I checked the time. I still had plenty of time before class began because I came so early. I took the bat in one hand and went out to the schoolyard. That was, of course, to practice my swing. I needed to make it known I would always have a bat on me so I could practice my swing. At some point, the sunlight had become even stronger. Disregarding my classmates as they made their way to school, I took my position in the shadow of the school building. I wasn't the academic type, and I wasn't much of an athlete either. I might get muscle pain if I just suddenly started swinging. I should at least start out with some warm-ups. I doubt anyone would think I was doing something out of the ordinary, which was the exact opposite of my actual mental state. I gripped the bat and swung lightly. The bat was by no means light. The weight would make it a reliable weapon when I needed it to be. Of course, I would only pray that the moment I needed to use this as a weapon would never come. Just carrying it around could deter attacks against me. At least that's what I hoped. Huh? Kei-chan? What are you doing? Being bombarded with such a hysterical voice, I jumped. Whoa, Keiichi-kun, are you on the baseball team? The baseball team? It was Reina and Mion. I was surprised to hear you went off ahead. What are you doing, Kei-chan? Can't you tell by looking? I'm practicing my swing, for the championship. You could say it's part of my diet if you want. Diet? Kei-chan, are you really that fat? But you didn't know, I actually have a beer belly. It's plump and jiggles. Plump and jiggles. Reina, you don't have to imagine something weird like that. To disrupt Reina from imagining something that vulgar, I ruffled her hair messily. Well then, I hope you make it to the regionals at least. This old man will cheer you on. Regionally speaking, it seems that Oshima High is pretty strong. They say their southpaw, Kameda-kun, is amazing. Good luck. Seems they've made me out of some kind of local prodigy, but oh well. Well, if I really did make it to the championship, it would be a cinch. After all, I'd be the pitcher and the catcher. I'd pitch the ball, then run past the ball I just threw and change over to being the catcher in a burst of super incredible explosive speed. I laughed dryly at the ludicrous image. Coming back to my senses, I smashed the bat against the ground. Oh. I don't like that noise. Damn it. What am I laughing at? I pounded the ground over and over. With each impact, the reverberation traveling through the bat stung my hands. They make me smile like that Don't allow anyone close to me. Don't trust anyone, no matter how many times I tell myself that. If they made me smile like that I already knew quite well that there were demons dwelling in my smiling friends, but I just couldn't believe it. That kind of split personality really exists? Like how Reina confessed to the doctor? Were they simply being possessed by Oyashiro-sama? In other words, did a supernatural being like Oyashiro-sama really exist, and was it possessing everyone to try and kill me? Yeah, that would be wonderful. If only everyone were actually my friends all along, and everything was just all Oyashiro-sama's fault. You damn fool, Keiichi Maebara, come on now, I yelled out, drawing out all the power from the pit of my stomach, and raised the bat violently into the air. Stop being so soft. As I screamed out with all my might, I beat the metal bat to the ground over and over. With every impact, my weakness was being beaten down. Smash. Forget. Smash. Don't be soft. Smash. Know your enemy. Smash. Like hell, I'd let them kill me. My shoulders heaving up and down from my ragged breathing, I heard the first bell ring just as I calmed down. Ooh. Yeah, our Keiichi is slowly losing his mind. I gasped with a sudden realization. That was the final bell. As I felt all the tension drain from me, I let out a deep breath. My mind was in a muddled state for much of the entire day. I didn't feel like I was awake, but it didn't feel like I was asleep either. I couldn't say it felt especially comfortable, but I felt a kind of relief that the sanctity of the school part of my daily life had yet to be violated. How long would I have to keep on living like this? I could only grit my teeth and bear with it as this living hell slowly gnawed away at me. Keiichi-kun, come on! It's club time! Club time! The sound of Reina's voice brought me back to my senses. Come on, Kei-chan, stop spacing out! Bring your desk! Your desk! Everyone was moving their desks together as usual. That's right, it was happy, fun club time, but I had no intention of taking part. I haphazardly stuffed the contents of my desk into my bag as I prepared to go home. It was a weak-handed gesture to avoid having to actually say, I'll be going home now. What's this, Kei-chan? You planning on going home right away again? Mion sounded quite disappointed. I'm just not in the mood. Could you just let me be for a while? The tone of the words that spilled from my mouth matched Mion's disapproving glare. Whew. It felt like the air in the room had dried out. Satoko looked like she was about to say something, but perhaps dissuaded by the mood, she swallowed her words and stayed silent. Nobody said a thing. I took that to mean that I could leave if I wanted. The collective gaze of the four of them, like the tiny pins used to mount an insect in a display, held me in place. Reina was the one who cut through the heavy mood. Keiichi-kun, you just didn't like playing with girls, I guess. She said it in such a melancholic tone that it sent a wave of pain racing through my heart. This pain was going to kill me. I wanted it to be the soft part of me that could still feel pain. I tore at my chest, violently tearing out the pins that held me in place. It's not it at all. I'd only be hurting myself by saying anything more, so I swallowed my words. Cutting things off there, I turned away and exited the classroom. They didn't speak a word to me as I left. I'm just scared of being killed, that's all. It was a long, dull trip back home, but I didn't lose focus. I firmly squeezed the grip of the bat, which was already soggy from sweat. Realizing that, I wiped it down with my sleeve. If something were to happen, I wouldn't want it to be slippery. Since this morning, I'd become especially sensitive to the presence of cars. Even while walking, my ears pricked up and sought out threatening sounds and presences that could be closing in. And that was why I could hear it. Without a doubt, there were footsteps. Those footsteps had matched up perfectly with mine for a while now. From what I could sense, it was just one person. But I had no intention of being careless. Did they intend to follow me like that, car this morning, until they were in a good location to assault me? Then it wasn't a good idea to keep walking like this. I stopped walking and looked back. The wooded path crowded with trees responded with silence, as if there was no one there to begin with. But I wouldn't be fooled. I was certain footsteps were following me. Just as I stopped, the footsteps stopped as well, meaning the person following me wanted to keep their distance. That was, without question, proof that I was their target. I held my breath, waiting for that presence to panic and start moving again. The trees rustled with the sound of the wind. Higurashi also joined in the dissonant chorus, trying to throw my focus into disarray. Had 5 minutes passed? Or had I been like this for a whole 30 minutes? It was so hard to breathe that I might have suffocated. It seemed I would be the first one to panic. Without a doubt, he was lurking in the shade of that tree with bated breath. Then, I'd make the first move. I fixed my grip on the bat. I raised it up to my shoulder to be ready to swing at any time. Hey, I know you're there. With all my might, I screamed at whoever was hiding in the shade of the trees. But the presence in the shade didn't budge. Until the moment I found them, they had no intention of revealing themselves. I know already. I know you're there. I screamed out angrily at them again, but even still, they didn't move at all. Then I'll go over there myself. Whew, I don't know if that's a good idea. With all due vigilance, I approached, step by step. Stopping into the tree's shadow, I saw a human figure there. The figure was curled up like a small animal. Reina, when she realized I had found her, her expression softened. She seemed apologetic, but wasn't going to speak a word. Do you have some business with me? I wouldn't accept that silence and screamed the question at her. Not really, it's just, Reina was in a panic with tears welling up in her eyes, but it was obvious that she had been following me. What about the club? What about the club? Since you're not, I'm not. That shouldn't matter. Don't mind me and just play. But I'm just worried about you. Yeah, I'm sure you are. You and Mion both want to kill me. I'm sure you're worried about me. Thinking about how I'd been acting up till now, it wasn't hard to imagine my behavior could have been perceived as strange. So Reina was concerned. At a quick glance, that's how it would seem. But I wasn't going to let my guard down that easily. Even if that was really the case, she still wouldn't have to do something like that to try to tail me. She should have called out to me when I was leaving and gone right out to me. But Raina didn't do that. She kept her distance from me and matched my walking speed. On top of that, she matched the sound of her footsteps, deviously tried to hide her presence from me. Then, after she realized I noticed she was there, she held her breath as she tried hiding from me. She wore a timid expression that would force one to take pity on her, but without a doubt, she was tailing me. Stop following me. How? Still glaring at Raina, I continued walking onwards. After I'd walked for a bit, she ignored my command and began walking again, so I yelled at her once more. I told you not to follow me. But my house is in the same direction. Then walk ahead of me. I'll start walking once I can't see you anymore. I moved out of the way and waved my bat violently to urge her forward. I'd like to go home together with you. Making a pitiful expression, she meekly squeaked out the words in a voice that she knew would cut into my heart. That agitated me to no end. I knew it was a lie. You wanted to go home together, then you should have called out to me. No, you're just blurting out random lies. I'm sorry. It seemed that the seething anger within me was written all over my face. Even without me saying anything, Raina had understood what I was feeling inside. If you get it, then go. I swung the bat, urging her again to walk. Raina looked back and forth between me and the bat, started walking hesitantly, then stopped again. Go on then, hurry. I'm going, so please stop with the bat. It's scary. Raina guarded herself while pointing at me with the bat. She may have realized that I wasn't planning on using this bat for baseball. I lowered the bat, but still guardedly opened the way for her. Go. There's no problem now, is there? There was nothing else she could protest. She passed by me timidly so as not to set me off. As I watched her pass by, she stopped completely after having barely moved at all. Hey, don't stop. Then a powerful gust blew past us, barraging my face with dust. Dust got into my eyes and clouded my vision. I rubbed my eyes with my left hand. I swung blindly with the bat in my right, protecting the small opening I had presented. But Raina didn't even try to attack during that opening. Attack me? No, she hadn't budged an inch. You could tell from the sound of her fluttering skirt in the wind. As her skirt settled, so did the silence. At that moment, the voice inside of me immediately warned me of impending danger. I was caught by surprise. The smell of the air had changed. Without me realizing it, the air around me suddenly felt like a calamity was about to befall me. It was like the air had suddenly become invisible concrete, like Raina and I were locked in this space. Raina didn't move an inch. Also unable to move, I stared at her back. Whew. Raina was the first to break the silence. I don't know if I want to know what she has to say. I don't know if I want to know. Instantly, she altered her stance. I felt like I had just witnessed her shift from Raina to the other person who looks like Raina. But the voice was one I knew well, which filled me with a kind of bewildering pity. Carelessly, I felt relief upon hearing that pitiful voice. Well, excuse me, but, can I ask you something? Too shy to even turn around, Raina squeezed her voice out desperately, as she trembled. What? Well, why do you have a bat? I wonder. The question Raina asked was by no means unexpected. I can carry whatever I want, but you didn't have one up until today. Why so suddenly? It's alright if I decide to do something suddenly, isn't it? Is it strange that I have a bat? Because Keiichi, you're not the kind of person to play baseball. It's weird. I couldn't tell what kind of answer she was looking for, and I was getting tired of answering her. I just suddenly got the urge to play baseball. Is that so weird? It's weird. She answered instantly, and that annoyed me slightly. I just suddenly wanted to play baseball, and I wanted to practice my swing, so I'm carrying around a bat. What's so strange about that? Strange. Weird, definitely. Why has Keiichi-kun also? Your ramblings are annoying me. Is it that strange for me to have an interest in sports? I tried to sound a bit more threatening to end the conversation. Until my suspicions about Raina were cleared, I had no obligation to answer her questions. I'm sorry, don't get so angry. Raina still didn't turn around and spat out words of apology one after the next. Just one last thing. Tell me one last thing. I don't feel like talking anymore. Hurry up and go. I yelled loudly at her, causing her to flinch like she had been struck. Seeing her in such a pathetic state caused my heart to ache sorely, but even though she was afraid, she stubbornly kept herself from moving. Before I was able to threaten her again, Raina asked her final question. Why is that bat the same too? What did she mean by the bat was the same? I had no idea what she was talking about. What are you saying? I mean, why is even the bat the same? I don't understand what you mean by that. Say it clearly. Even still, Reina didn't turn around. After inhaling deeply, she screamed. I mean, why is even the bat the same as Satoshi-kun's? Satoshi being... Huh? Upon hearing the name out of the blue, I became dumbfounded for a brief moment. By Satoshi? She mean the student who transferred out last year? No, that couldn't be. Reina had tried to cover it up by saying he transferred, but Oishi-san told me clearly that he was missing. He was the student who sat at my seat. Up until the last year, he was believed to have been demoned away by Oyashiro-sama's curse. I didn't know the details about his disappearance. The aunt he lived with was killed the night of the Watanagashi by a drug addict, and not long after that, he suddenly vanished and was now missing. Then Satoshi and I were... what? My gaze fell to the bat in my hands. Could it be? Satoshi Hojo. It was a bit difficult to see, but that was what was written on the white tape at the end of the bat. I see, so this was Satoshi's bat. This was Satoshi's bat. Since nobody was using it, I borrowed it. It's not a problem, is it? That's not it. That was the way Reina said it, made it seem like this bat was something that should never be touched. Like it was some sort of offering at a shrine or a memento of the deceased. I could only stand there, perplexed and unable to respond. Reina continued speaking without waiting for a reply. Why is it that you're doing the exact same thing Satoshi-kun did when it happened to him? Reina was talking about more than just the bat belonging to Satoshi. It was the same with Satoshi-kun. He joined a baseball team, but he didn't really like baseball. What does that have to do with me? Satoshi-kun also suddenly started walking around with a bat one day. He joined a team, but he wasn't the type to play sports. What about it? I closed my mouth before I could say that out loud. Listen carefully, Keiichi. Reina is trying to tell us something important. Satoshi-kun also one day came to school all by himself all of a sudden, just like Keiichi-kun. Then one day he suddenly started practicing his swing, just like Keiichi-kun. Then one day he suddenly began carrying the bat around with him, just like Keiichi-kun. Then one day he suddenly what? Reina had swallowed her words. Reina's sudden silence brought a hush back to the surrounding area. It was then that I could finally digest the content of the entire conversation. She was saying my chain of actions is exactly the same as Satoshi's. What was the meaning of this? Until just now I'd forgotten all about Satoshi. I had never paid much thought to him in the first place. Not only that, I didn't even know anything of what he'd done. My actions today should have been my own creation, after all the planning I had done. But they had been the exact same as Satoshi's? The Satoshi, no, more importantly, both Satoshi and I acted the same, and there was a really good possibility that what happened after would be the same. Reina, that day, what happened to Satoshi? Reina knew. She knew what became of Satoshi. No, forget about what happened to a guy in the past. Reina knew what was going to happen. To me. Answer me, Reina. Satoshi, what happened to him? With that, I grabbed Reina's shoulder violently and forcibly turned her around to face me. She's not gonna look good. She's not gonna look nice. As I faced her, I felt a jolt travel through my entire body. I knew it. I was expecting that response. I don't like it. I told you, Keiichi-kun. It was that person that I didn't know. At least, it definitely wasn't the Reina Ryugo I had been talking to up till now. Voice just now didn't have a trace of the trembling or emotion that it had before. The amount of regret I felt for turning her around so carelessly was unsurpassed. The gaze that pierced like a cold needle, the smile on her face that invoked an image of having been carved out by a knife. Chills went down my spine. My mind froze under a layer of rime. Both of Reina's eyes pierced through mine, leaving me unable to look away. As if to remind me of the fear from that time before, Reina brought her face close to mine, so close that I could feel her breath. Her face had filled my entire field of vision. Then, her sharply shaped lips grew even sharper, like the curve of a crescent moon. She grinned. I told you, Keiichi-kun. After a short pause, Reina repeated the same words again. Satoshi-kun, you see, transferred out. Transferred meaning what? When Reina must have meant the same new definition of transfer that I was previously not aware of. My throat and lips dried up. I couldn't even acknowledge what I had just heard. All I could do was swallow down my own saliva. It would seem that Raina saw that as a nod. She pulled her gaze back and spryly stepped back 2 or 3 paces. As she did, my legs gave out and I fell to my knees pathetically. Raina and me on my knees underneath her emotionless smile. That had to be a very odd sight indeed. Seeing me in that pathetic state, she neither scoffed at me nor held out her hand, but I could neither stand nor escape with her gaze shooting through my eyes. There was undoubtedly a metal bat in my hand, but right now it was useless to me. I was like a fly caught in her web. Heavy sweat beaded all over my body. I could feel it dripping from my skin. But you won't, will you, Keiichi-kun? Raina finally released me from that cage of time after what felt like an eternity. But her question was missing something important and was incredibly vague. Once again I swallowed hard, urging her on. Do what? What did she not want me to do? Transfer out. Transfer? I hate that. I hate that look. I really, really hate that look. I don't like that look at all. Satoshi and I had... What? All my Wampa in action throughout the day turned out to have been nothing more than a reenactment of what Satoshi had done. Satoshi, had he really been in the same situation as I was now? The friends he had gotten along with had changed suddenly, for no reason. At least none that I had noticed. Planned to kill him? Then, fearing for his life as I am, he got a bat to protect himself and carried him around every day to practice his swing. And then one day, suddenly, he transferred. My blood went cold, causing a prickling sensation to course through my veins. Starting near my heart, it radiated outwards, from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, chilling every part of me without recourse. What does she mean by transfer? What does she mean by transfer? Was Satoshi still at wherever he transferred to? Was he the only one who would be able to understand me? Would he be able to tell me why it had all ended up like this? More importantly, where did he transfer to? What does she mean by transfer? What does she mean by transfer? Before I knew it, I was at my front door. The frigid knob was hard to turn. There was nobody home. It wasn't that odd of an occurrence. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the single key attached to my fur seal keychain. I bet somebody's there. I stepped into the entryway. Just as I was about to take off my shoes, a chill ran down my spine. Someone had entered right behind me. Like a classmate messing around, standing right up against my back. You're kidding, right? It had to be my imagination. Logically speaking, it was impossible for someone to be able to hide their presence from my personal space all the way through the door. There was undoubtedly someone behind me. Hey now, Keiichi. How do you know they're there, even though they're behind you? Because I could hear the sound of flowing hair. There's no other reason. I heard the sound. That was the presence. Because I could hear the sound of them blinking. Keiichi Maebara, there's no way you could hear that. It was mostly instinct than anything else that was warning me of that presence. Common sense was telling me it was just my imagination. It was just my imagination. There was nobody behind me. I began to erase the mental image of an eerie figure standing behind me. But at the same time, I asked myself, there was nobody. And what was I feeling? As an uncomfortable sensation crawled up my spine. Actually, wouldn't it be better if there was someone there? If there was nobody there when you turned around? Would you be able to accept that? I'd be able to answer all of those questions just by looking behind me. But I didn't have enough courage to even do that simple task. Oh right, I could try speaking to them. The person behind me might answer me. It was a random thought. I didn't care how I went about it, just so long as I didn't have to turn around. If I had calmed down and thought about it, I would have known that that wouldn't have solved anything. Who is it? I spoke in such a hoarse, broken voice that I couldn't believe it was my own. I can almost feel them contemplating their response. I felt it. There's no way I should be able to do that. Calm down, Keiichi. It's all in your head. That time, I was certain I heard it. As if hesitantly trying to answer my inquiry, I was certain I could hear the sound of somebody inhaling. Who's at the door? I heard it. I heard it. I heard it clearly. It was a girl. A young girl. I don't know who, but a tiny speck of courage in me, however reckless it was, inspired a primal yet fitting solution to this current predicament. A scream. All the force of my body released from my lungs and through my throat, ceasing all thought processes in my head. Expressing all my thoughts and emotions, I began to collapse like a house of cards, somehow managing to twist my body and look back as I did so. It was definitely there. Right there. Somebody was there. Till the moment I turned around, till I brought the area behind me into my field of vision. They were definitely there. Falling face up, my eyes traced the remnants of the presence, suspended in my empty space. It couldn't be. They were invisible. They looked like they weren't there. But were they actually still standing there? As I screamed, all the emotions I was holding back burst free in a violent wave. However, I was decidedly calm as my emotional dam collapsed. The turbulent wave of pent-up emotions was skillfully diverted to a torrent of aggression. That emotion was definitely required to extricate myself from the bizarre situation happening right in front of me. In my state of heightened lucidity, I entrusted my body to the fury. The metal bat held firm in my right hand as if drawn there by a magnet. A mid-level sweep would be the hardest attack to dodge. I remember reading something like that from a book about swordsmanship or something. Rah! I brandished my will to fight. The afterimage of that amalgamation of metal flashed as it swung from left to right, beating against the entryway. The bat slammed to the right while the tip were bounding violently. Very calmly, I transferred the force of the rebound to a sweep to the left. The door of the shoe cupboard was split into pieces. Those two swings whiffed through the empty space, but they seemed to have a great psychological impact on the enemy. I could feel the panic emanating from that space. This attack wasn't the only thing required. I extracted the bat from the cupboard it was embedded in and screamed as I spun my entire body around in a large arc. Rah! My scream shook the air, imbuing my ferocious swing with even more destructive power. Ooh. You're gonna break your whole house, dude. Come on. Crack. Without mercy or restraint, my violent strike, with certainty fatal force behind it, shattered the top of the cupboard. None of my attacks struck the enemy, but my ferocity had certainly seemed to impact them. Breathing heavily and my entire body soaked in sweat, the invisible enemy, there, but not there, dispersed. When I was certain that the enemy had retreated, I locked the front door and latched the chain. No way had it only feigned retreat and was now inside my house. Once again, I channeled my aggression and searched the house for the presence, but it was gone. I had succeeded in fending it off. At that moment, the tension drained from my body and I let out a deep sigh of relief. All of the emotions I'd been holding back chaotically merged together and began to flood out. A hodgepodge of fear, accomplishment, and disbelief all mixed together and began to flow through my body. Unable to deal with each individual feeling, I beat them all back with the strongest exhaustion. Even in this moment, I remained composed. After checking that all the doors throughout the house were locked, I went up to my room on the second floor and closed the curtains. I straightened my back and tilted my head back a little. After clearing my mind of all the idle thoughts, I managed to calm down even more. What was that at the front door? There was definitely something there. Thinking about it, maybe it was just an apparition I dreamt up in my confused state, but I really didn't think that was the case. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. Compose yourself. But no matter how calmly I thought about it, what just happened wasn't a figment of my imagination. It was obviously a supernatural phenomenon. Without a doubt, something was behind me. It wasn't some sort of illusion I saw amidst my confusion and disorientation. Proof? I had just one piece. When I asked who is it, they inhaled as if they were about to answer. That sound had clearly reached my ears. The situation I was in right now was still unclear. I had either been possessed by the supernatural phenomenon known as Oyashiro-sama's curse, or this was a ruse by the villagers who believed in it and were imitating it. Either way, their motives were unclear. The roundabout way it had been done was also still a mystery. If it was perpetrated by humans, that would mean admitting that it was Reina and the rest of them doing it, but it would be solvable. Oishi-san and the rest of the police would surely arrest the enemy. But if it was a manifestation of Oyashiro-sama's curse, I wondered what would happen. Oishi-san very clearly declared that curses didn't exist. At that time, those words were pretty dependable, but as things were now, with the rising probability that the perpetrators were not human, he suddenly seemed quite unreliable. If I told Oishi-san this was the work of Oyashiro-sama's curse, what would happen? I couldn't imagine his reaction, but it would go without question that a void would expand rapidly between myself and Oishi-san. With me having so few allies to begin with, and not being able to confidently declare whether or not this was a curse or not, there was no merit to doing that. I'd better keep the facts of what just happened at the doorway to myself. It would be better if I didn't add what had happened here to the memo behind the clock. There was still the ever so slight possibility that I was actually confused when I thought I was confused, and I was just going berserk in that entryway. How wonderful would that be if that was really what happened? I would be able to refute Oyashiro-sama's curse. But if I denied Oyashiro-sama's curse, then that would mean admitting that Rain and the rest were the perpetrators. If I said that Rain and the rest weren't the perpetrators, then that would mean believing in Oyashiro-sama's curse. But denying both of those, I would be admitting that I myself was losing it. The three options from which I couldn't choose became a trilemma of sorts. They mixed together and formed a whirlpool in my mind, making my head spin. Once again, I straightened myself and leaned my head back slightly to cool myself down. Calm down, Keiichi. Accept what has actually happened as reality. Stop thinking of anything more than that. But I couldn't help but think of it. How wonderful it would be if it turned out I was delirious and everything up until now was a figment of my imagination. Oyashiro-sama's curse wouldn't exist, and I would still be bestest buddies with Reina and the rest. I would have to be crazy. This was the first time in my life I'd ever wished for such a thing. Oh. Okay, the music is happy, so it must be happy, right? It must be a happy conversation. The phone rang noisily downstairs. Generally, there were no calls for me, so I never really answered the phone much. But since my parents weren't here, I had no choice. I squirmed off the bed and went downstairs. Hello, this is the Maybara residence. Keiichi, this is Mom. I intuitively had a bad feeling about this. It was because I thought she was going to ask me to go out and buy some things, so I took the initiative. What? I don't mind having instant noodles for dinner. There's still a lot of them. The other day we went out as a family and bought a whole case of cup noodles. I wanted to get a bunch of different kinds, actually, but they refused since the individual packs were expensive. So instead, I got a whole case of the mega-sized pork bone and ginger-flavored ones I liked. That sounds interesting. I actually would try that. But my parents don't like strong flavors and didn't touch any of them, so the cupboards were still full of them. So you see, there really isn't a need to go shopping, right? Keiichi, I'm not asking you to go shopping. Both Mommy and Daddy have to go to Tokyo right now because of work. Huh? Right now? That was really abrupt. No, we're already here. We left this afternoon. It's quite a distance to Tokyo from Hinamizawa. Gunning at full speed on the highway would still take 6 hours. Dad had a license, but since he doesn't like the highway, they likely took the train. It would have taken longer. I'm thinking you might understand since you heard us speaking last night, but it has to do with Daddy's contract. Right now, things aren't going so smoothly. Now that she mentioned it, I do remember that they talked all the time about how his job prospects weren't looking so good. Daddy is really sensitive about things like this, so if we leave things as they are, it will affect his work. Part of my father's particular fragile artistic personality, his emotions changed as easily as the fall sky. You could also just say he couldn't take criticism. But something like that can be done over the phone. Keiichi, this is your father's job, so can you support him a bit, please? Anyway, it's just faster to talk about it in person, so there wouldn't be any misunderstandings. As their son, there was nothing more I could say once they started talking about work. So we'll be back tomorrow night. Keiichi, will you be fine on your own? It's not like I'll die or anything. Not like anybody's trying to kill me or anything. No, never. Keiichi, you shouldn't speak so lightly of dying. If there's something troubling you, just talk to us. I believe Mommy will be able to help out. I'm sorry, Mom. I love you, but I don't think you can help me. I really don't think you can help me. Yesterday I did bring up if I died rather abruptly, so I suppose they were a little worried. But really, I was more depressed by the fact that nothing would be solved by telling them. But I didn't plan on dying. At least not while I still knew nothing. I would never allow it. I won't die. I won't. I'll survive even if I have to gnaw my leg off. Yeah, see you then. Tomorrow morning, make sure to wake up and eat your breakfast. Don't forget to take a bath and brush your teeth. Yeah, see ya. Why would you say something like that to your mom? Like, even if I have to gnaw my own leg off, like, that's, and she's just like, yeah, whatever. Just make sure you brush your teeth. Like, that's normal. That's a normal conversation. The call ended like that. Sometimes my parents went off to Tokyo for business meetings, but Tokyo was far away. They normally did things by phone. The times they did go were normally planned out in advance. It never happened this suddenly. I couldn't say that those circumstances didn't feel strange, or rather, unnatural. Anyway, I only needed to recognize the reality of the situation. But tonight, I was the only one in the house. But when my parents came back from work, I'd be gone. Missing. Vanished. Looking back on the series of events of the previous 5 years involving Oyashiro Sma's curse, it wouldn't seem that strange at all. Come to think of it, it was getting pretty late. I didn't think it was good that the only light on in the whole house was from my room on the second floor. It was the same as broadcasting to the enemy that my parents were gone, and this was their chance. First I ran to the living room, flipped on the lights, and turned on the TV to a reassuring volume. Next was the study. I similarly turned on the lights and some music. With this, from the outside, it would look like my parents were there. Once again, I went through the house, checking to see if there was anything left unclocked. When I saw the veranda and the laundry still hanging out there, I went pale. That would have made it too obvious. I needed to take it down. I snatched down the laundry haphazardly and erased all traces that my mother wasn't there. Should be fine now. Ah, the garage. They hadn't gone all the way to Tokyo by car, but they had gone up to Okinomiya Station. The garage was empty, wide open, and in plain sight. This was no good. I panicked and rushed out the back to close the normally open garage door. Should be fine now. I need to get the paper. Mom had always got the paper. Since they left in the afternoon, the evening paper was still out there. My premonition was correct. I pulled out everything from the mailbox and dropped it into the entryway. With this, for sure this time, it should be fine. Come to think of it, leaving the cupboard busted like that from my little freak-out was kind of bad. I'll just say I tripped and fell, and the bat I was holding smashed into it. Even so, just leaving it in its current state wasn't good. I should clean it up before Mom got back and scolded me. I remembered that there was a broom and dustpan in the closet. As I was going to get them, the phone rang once again. Oh boy, I don't think this is going to be a nice conversation. Hello, this is the Maebara residence. Oh, is this Keiichi-kun? Is your mother around? She isn't here at the moment. You idiot, Keiichi Maebara. Don't reveal that your parents are gone. You can follow up still. Calm down and take care of it. I think she'll be back soon. That wasn't a good response either. Now they might say they'll call back again, or tell her to call them when she comes back. And that's fine. It wasn't anything important. Well then, sorry for the bother. The scenario I feared didn't play out. Eliciting a sigh of relief. The call was fortunate in more ways than one. I'd have to deal with more telephone calls coming in from my parents tonight. I was somehow able to deal with the phone call just now, but I couldn't continue to rely on such poor improvisation. I needed to make up a good story to explain that my parents were home, but couldn't answer the phone at the moment. They were making tempura and couldn't step away right now. That wasn't good enough. They were sick and went to bed because they weren't feeling well. Wasn't that going to be safe enough? I was thinking about it on the way back to my room when the phone rang once again. It was like they were calling because they knew I was going to lie. I didn't want to pick up, but I knew I had to. I'd suspect my parents weren't there. I should have just taken the phone off the hook under the pretense that I didn't realize that it was. But since the phone rang, I had to pick it up. I prepared myself and lifted up the receiver. Hello? I stopped announcing that this was the Maebara residence. I had no reason to be kind to someone I didn't know the identity of. But unlike my uncouth voice, the person on the other side sounded goofy and lighthearted. Hello, my apologies for calling so late. This is Oishi from the Okinomiya bookstore. Oishi-san! Ah. Oishi is like the only person, I trusted anymore. Is that you, Maebara-san? Good evening. Good to hear you are doing well. Wait just a moment, please. I grabbed the portable headset and rushed up to my room with it. It was the same no matter where I was, since there was no one else at home, but I wanted to be in a spot that just felt a bit safer when speaking on the phone with Oishi-san. Sorry for the wait. How are you? Anything changed since then? Since then? When was that exactly? There was something about the brazen way he talked that rubbed me the wrong way. The last time I spoke with Oishi-san was 2 days ago. Wow, so much has happened in 2 days. Holy crap. The day I stayed home from school, I met Oishi-san on the way back from the hospital, and we headed into town for lunch and had a talk. Then after that, Reina Mion came to check up on me. Whenever I spoke with Oishi-san, they always knew about it. It was like that since the first time I met him. Today's phone call may well be found out by them as well. Hello? Can you hear me, Maebara-san? Huh? Sorry. What did you say? I asked if anything's changed since last time. There wasn't an answer, so I got a bit worried. Not really. The words stopped in my throat. There was a ton of stuff that happened, all of it baffling. What should I talk about? I didn't understand any of it, but I should try asking. If I didn't ask now, I may never have another chance. This night, when my parents weren't home, I had no guarantees I would make it through the night safely after all. Well, Oishi-san, it seems that someone is after me. Really? It could just be a coincidence, but the day I missed school when I was sick, the two of them came to check up on me. Which two? Reina and Mion. They started asking about how I had lunch with you. What next? They left me some mochi when they came in to visit, but there was a needle inside. Fortunately, I somehow didn't swallow it. I wonder, could that have just been a threat? About the needle. It was just one of those common sewing needles you see all the time. There was a hole to thread string through. Not that, Maebara-san, the needle itself. That's evidence. It could be used as proof that they threatened you. Where is that needle? That's right, that's it! I dropped the receiver and rushed downstairs. When I tossed that mochi, I had overlooked it out of terror, but that needle was a valuable piece of evidence. I had certainly thrown the mochi and the needle at the wall together. If it was there, then it would be the living room wall. My prudent mother had cleaned that living room wall, and there was not a trace of mochi left on it. Could it be that it had dropped in the gap between the wall and the carpet? I frantically searched by running my palm along the carpet, but nothing turned up. I tried moving around the sofa and desks, pulling up the carpet, and then flapping it around, but I couldn't find that needle. Did my mom clean up everything without noticing it? It was just 2 days ago. I don't know what day they collected the burnable trash, but it may still be in the trash bin in the kitchen. I rushed to the kitchen, opened up the lid of the pail, and poured out the contents. But even at a glance, I could tell this was going to be incredibly difficult to find the needle in this pair of trash. I was looking for a needle in a trash stack. I know, I'll try running my hand through it. It was a bit gross, but I was looking for a needle. If I felt a small prick, I'd be able to find it. It's a pretty tactless method, but it was the quickest. I held my breath and started striking the pile of trash with my hand. Filth flew about. There was nothing more disgusting than this, but this was not the time to be concerned about such details. I continued on for a while, but nothing turned up. I wanted to search more thoroughly, but I was still on the phone. I shouldn't keep Oichi-san waiting for too long. Later, when Mom got back, I'd have to ask her if there was a needle. I hastily began scribbling on the notepad affixed to the refrigerator with a magnet. Was there a needle? I scrawled the words with a red pen. I then dashed back up the stairs where I had been keeping Oishi-san waiting for far too long. Hello? How did it go? I couldn't find it. I was really overwhelmed back then, and I see. It would be great if you could find it. Keep it safe. That's right, the needle wasn't the only incident. I had to tell him about this morning with the hit and run. Also, Oishi-san, that isn't all. Actually, this morning, the van was definitely aiming for me. I could say that without question due to the circumstances at the time. Did you see the license plate? I could search for it from here. Damn. I just flipped out yelling at him back then, but I didn't look at the plate. What failures on my part with the needle and the plate number. I was so focused just protecting myself that I let some of my most important details slip out of my grasp. I punched my pillow and noted how worthless I was. I'm sorry, I don't know much more than that it was a white van. Nothing to fret about, Maebara-san. Anyone would be shaken up after being hit. Guess all of this really isn't a coincidence, is it? Oishi-san started to hem and haw over the other end. I could imagine him folding his arms. Also, Reina is acting strange. How so? Reina said on the way home today, asking why I was so much like Satoshi-kun. Now I could say with confidence that Reina knew what happened to Satoshi. She knew that there was more to it than just him simply disappearing. Reina knows. She knows something regarding what happened to Satoshi, the kid who was demoned away last year. What would that be exactly? Reina said I was the same as Satoshi. She said something to the effect that the way things are going, I'll end up with the same fate as Satoshi. Fate, you say? Exactly what kind of fate did she say would befall you? Transferring out, she said. Transferring out? Reina said Satoshi transferred out. So, given how things are going with me, I'll transfer out too. Oishi-san let out a stern sigh and then grumbled loudly. Maebara-san, that was probably some sort of threat. Or maybe some type of warning. I thought so too. At that point, I started to think. Would it be prudent to sum up everything that had happened up until now as the machinations of some human perpetrator? Other than the theory of it being Reina and the others, I was left with Oyashiro-sama's curse actually existing as the only other explanation. Of course, I couldn't tell that to Oishi-san, except Reina's strange behavior could be proof of either scenarios. Whether it was Oyashiro-sama's curse being real or everything being part of the conspiracy committed by all the villagers, Reina was involved. Reina had to know something. Reina was suspicious. Very sus. What exactly was Reina? I couldn't help but think she was somehow involved with the prior string of mysterious deaths. I seem to recall that Oishi-san had admitted that he had dug into Reina's past a little. He was probably just downplaying it when he said a little. Meaning he had actually dug pretty deep, most likely. I wanted to hear about Reina. I wanted to know what happened at her previous school, among other things that were still unknown to me. If Reina was somebody I should suspect, no, not that. I wanted to know the truth. Tonight I was alone in this huge house. Even though I said I couldn't count on them, I had lost the security I felt I had just by my parents being around. It wasn't like this house was some sort of fortress or castle. If a malicious person decided to use brute force, they'd easily gain entry. There were no other residences close to the Maybara residence. No one would be able to hear anything, no matter how loud it was. I had never felt as much resentment toward my father's artistic temperament as the fact that he built this house in such a remote location as I did right now. I wondered if I would still be here by tomorrow morning, so I had to ask, right now, because I had no idea when the next chance would come. Oh, someone is ringing my doorbell, and I do not like that. Oishi-san, I have something I wanted to ask about. Please don't keep anything from me. Sure, ask away. Even though he was so far away on the other end of the line, that was the most reliable he had ever felt. I wanted to ask about Reina, about what happened at her previous school. Actually, regarding Reina's... I noticed a sound that had been going on for a while now. Since I was so focused on the call, I hadn't paid attention to it at first, but I finally realized it was the doorbell. The time was 7 o'clock. It was past the time the postman would be making a delivery, and past any sensible time for a neighbor to be visiting. I considered just acting like nobody was home, but that wouldn't be good. That would ruin all the work I had put into making it look like my parents were home. I need to answer the door. Hello, Maybara-san? Sorry, someone seems to be at the door. I'm going to go see who it is. A guest? I see, my apologies. Should we end this phone call now? That would be a problem. No, I'll be back in a second. Do you mind if I just leave the phone on? It's fine, I don't mind. I dropped the handset on my bed and dashed down to the door. I needed to make up a good excuse to get them to leave. I had a hunch it was the lady who called right before Oishi-san did, in which case it would be one of my neighbors who was friends with my mom. I'll just say Mom isn't feeling well and went to bed early. That would be the easiest option. It's not her, I can almost guarantee it. It'd be hard for her to ask me to wake up my mom. Ask me to wake my mom up if she's not feeling well. The bell continued to ring at regular intervals. If someone didn't answer after you rang the bell so much, you'd normally give up and go home, wouldn't you? Without removing the chain, I opened the door slightly and peered out at the visitor. A chill ran down my spine. I knew it. It's gonna be Reina. Somewhere deep inside, I had prepared for this moment. I tried to escape by imagining it was the easiest person to deal with, one of my mom's friends. It was Reina. I knew it. I knew it. Good evening, Reina. There shouldn't be any reason for Reina to come over at this hour. The timing also made me feel uneasy, because it was just as I was about to ask Oishi-san about Reina. I wish I could have chalked this up to mere coincidence, but those unsettling words from Mion several days ago echoed back to me. There's nothing this old man doesn't know. Oof. Are you alone, Reina? Yeah. It seems that Mion wasn't with her, but that didn't change the situation at all. Why did you come here? Hey, Keiichi-kun, I'd like you to open the door so we can talk. Can I come inside, I wonder? It was true that speaking through a chained door wasn't the right way to talk to a classmate, but at my house, the chain has to be on at night. Don't worry about it. Then it can't be helped, I guess. Reina pouted rather sadly. She kept smiling at least, and her effort to keep that smile up was quite painful. Even though she was tugging at my heartstrings, I didn't lower my guard. As long as I stayed like this, even if it made my heart ache, my life wasn't in danger. What I really feared, more than the possibility that hoodlums would assault me if I removed the chain, was trusting Reina enough to remove the chain and having my friendship betrayed. As long as the chain wasn't unlatched, even if it made my heart ache, I wouldn't have to deal with being betrayed by Reina. Since it didn't seem like I'd removed the chain from her silent urging, she appeared to give up on trying to get into the entranceway. Have you eaten yet, Keiichi-kun? No, I haven't eaten. Since my mom wasn't there, dinner wouldn't be ready no matter how long I waited. I laid down when I got home, was woken up by the phone, and didn't have any chance to eat since I used up all that time talking. I was going to have cup noodles in any case. I could just eat one whenever I wanted to. No, not yet. What about it? Hey, then good. Look here. I brought a bunch of dishes. Reina held out a stick of boxes wrapped in cloth. If I could use your kitchen, I can heat up the miso soup and other stuff. It's fine, you don't need to do that, but there's lots of tofu and vegetables in it. Does Keiichi-kun not like that type of stuff? I wonder? There's no way I wouldn't like that. I love miso soup with lots of ingredients, with white radishes, carrots, burdock root, potatoes, dense and fibrous root vegetables. Yeah, that miso soup looks incredible. I also brought rice, so if you microwave it, you can eat it really quickly. Without a doubt, rice needs miso soup. Stuffing rice down your gullet, sipping miso soup in between ravenous bites. Oh yes, how wonderful it is to be born Japanese. Also, I made some more pickles. I made sansai pickles this time. Before I had moved here to Hinamizawa, I scoffed at the mountain vegetables called sansai, but I was captivated by their charm the first time I tried them. Such a deep yet light flavor. The vegetables from the supermarket were tasteless and bland compared to these. If you had to describe them, then they were the vegetables for the uninitiated. To become an expert such as myself, you first had to partake of sansai. It's commonly knowledgeable around here that the Ryuga family traditional pickles were wonderfully delicious, no matter what kind of pickles they were. They'd go so well with that fluffy white rice. And also, but wait, there's more. So delicious, it just seemed so delicious. Farewell to my unhealthy self who said he'd make do with cup noodles. Reina appeared to be in good spirits, and she was offering such a delicious-sounding dinner. The stress evaporated from my gut, and hunger reared its ferocious head. At the same time, my wariness of Reina suddenly dwindled. Reina did say she was alone. It shouldn't be a problem letting her inside, though that possibility that it was laced with poison still hadn't been ruled out. At the moment, a cold chill ran down my spine once again. I couldn't understand why such a sensation had occurred just then, but the voice inside of me was sounding the alarm. Oh. This happy Reina speaking of this charming dinner was dependent on one premise. That premise was that tonight dinner hadn't been made at my house, meaning it was under the assumption that my mom, who should be making it, wasn't here. My normal household, 7 o'clock would be around the middle of dinner time. If my mom were here, she would be eating dinner around this time as well. The fact that she brought over all the makings of a meal at this one time was inherently strange. Unless she knew. Reina, did she know that my parents weren't home? There was also the chance that this was a bluff. I had turned on the lights and a bunch of other stuff to make it seem like my parents were here. There was a chance that Reina was unsure if my parents were home. But I had to wonder. The laundry, the garage, the evening paper, there were plenty of signs of them being hastily tidied up. It's hard to say that Reina didn't have a chance to determine if my parents were here or not. But there was no reason for me to confess that right now. I should try holding on to that fact as long as I could. First of all, the chain was still latched. As long as I didn't take it off, Reina wouldn't be able to do anything to me. I'm quite grateful, but dinner will be ready pretty soon. Huh? Is that so? I knew you went through all that effort and everything, but, well, unable to think of a good way to refuse, my words trailed off weakly. But some of this could work as side dishes, I think. I'm sorry, we have more than enough already. My mom always makes quite a few side dishes, so... Huh, you have side dishes? With a smile that bordered on a cringe, I dodged her questions up apologetically. The feeling I tried to ignore began creeping on my back again. I spoke as if my mom was settling down dinner right now, but it didn't mesh well with what Reina was saying. Reina was talking as if she was aware of some obvious fact, and that I was aware of it as well. So Keiichi-kun could cook. What did you make, I wonder? No, well, it's not that Reina had seemed out of nowhere that I had made the dishes. Not so much that I'd made them, but rather that my mom hadn't. Did you really make them? The side dishes? Did you, Keiichi-kun? It wasn't me who made them, my mom did. No, she's making them. Right now. So you see, I'm sorry, but I can't eat what you brought. Reina fell silent at that moment. At that moment, I felt that her light had suddenly disappeared from her eyes. How about I try guessing what Keiichi-kun's dinner will be? It doesn't matter what I'm going to eat. Let's see. The conversation might appear natural at first glance, but Reina was firmly in control. Felt like I was being interrogated. Your dinner, I wonder, is it just something that can be made with just hot water? Hey now, stop with the insults. I can't believe you blew my mom's extravagant dinner like that. Tickets sold out, full capacity already. It's that amazing. I tried my best to put on a strong front, but I couldn't grit my teeth quite right. So instead I looked like someone who was borderline hysterical. Reina showed no reaction whatsoever, even to that silliness. Keiichi-kun, did your mother really leave you dinner? Now you see, she didn't leave me dinner. She's making it right now. It's almost time for dinner. Reina had taken the assertion of mine that my mother was home and making dinner right now and was completely ignoring it. I could tell that the more I panicked, the colder Reina became. Hey, Keiichi-kun. At that moment, an uncomfortable chill crept in from the gap in the doorway. Is your mom home? I wonder. I couldn't keep up this charade anymore. Reina, she knew full well that my parents weren't home, but I'd come too far to admit that now. Anyway, my parents were here and we'd be having dinner soon. That was the situation I had concocted, so I answered. I told her she was here. She's here, of course. I feel the humidity dying out from the surrounding air. Reina's eyes were becoming even more frigid, piercing me with their gelid glare. Why? Oh boy. I hate when she changes her facial expression. It freaks me out. Huh? What do you mean? I tried acting casual, but that facade was torn off me the instant I looked into Reina's eyes. That look, it affirmed me of Reina's response faster than she could open her mouth. Why have you been lying to me, I wonder? I'm not lying. That's a lie, isn't it? It's not a lie. Lies! Reina's outburst sent a jolt searching through my body. Reina and I were still separated by what a few inches that slightly ajar but still chained door could afford, but despite that I was still being cornered. My house, which I'd considered a safe haven until now, had become more like a dark alleyway where no one could save me. Shall I guess your dinner, Keiichi-kun? Let's see. I knew that Reina had already known that my parents would not be here tonight, but it was still so strange that it had come to this. Even if she somehow knew that my parents weren't home, there was no way she would be able to guess what I'd be eating tonight. But Reina said she'd guess. How could she guess it? How could she know it was instant cup noodles? That's right, isn't it? That I was going to eat. Wait, the cooking repertoire of a man who can't do housework is probably nothing but cup noodles after all. Looking at this statistically, it was the most probable answer. That didn't mean she was guessing. I don't think you'll be full with just noodles. I think having rice and stuff will definitely hit the spot. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. This was just a coincidence. Reina was just reading certain tales of mine. So the fact that she was inferring what I was thinking alarmed me. But it wasn't as if she was actually reading my mind. If it was being read, then she was a demon. No, not a demon. Things like that, they couldn't possibly exist. Do you like them? You mean noodles? No. What? Reina indicated that the point my answer was addressing was wrong. Her rebuttal was so short that I momentarily didn't understand the words Reina had spoken. Sorry, Reina. What did you say just now? Huh? About what? You know. Just now, you asked me if there was something that I liked, didn't you? It wasn't long before I regretted how carelessly I'd pushed forward with that question. It was such a simple answer. That was why I wasn't able to comprehend it. Pork bone and ginger flavor. I wondered how I appeared in the moments my mind went completely blank until the moment I was able to recover. As my field of view began to distort, slowly swirling into a counterclockwise direction, I lost all sense of balance. Why do you know that? I didn't even deny it. That was the type of frenzied state I was in. How could Reina even know this? Not even caring as I mashed my head against the door, I fixated my gaze on Reina. But she didn't even flinch when she saw me do that. I certainly did buy them. I bought a bunch at once. Bought a whole case. How could you know that? Why, I wonder. Quite strange, isn't it? How could you dodge the question at times like this? The chain and the door suddenly were no longer protecting me. How do you know? Why do you know? Answer me! You bought them at 7th Mart, didn't you? A shiver ran up my spine. I tried covering it up with an angry facade. Like I said, why do you know that? I was behind you, following you the whole time. What are you saying? I couldn't understand why she was saying she'd been following me all the time. That's because Reina was right behind Keiichi-kun's back the whole time. He. I do not like it. Like that night? The night I was absorbed in my phone conversation with the Oishi-san, I didn't even sense her being there, standing behind the door. Behind me, standing there, just like that. When Keiichi-kun was picking out the noodles, I was watching the entire time. You picked out so many different flavors, didn't you? When your mom got angry. If you're going to pick the expensive ones, then you should just pick one type, she said. Then Keiichi-kun picked up the big box of pork bone and ginger flavor that he loves so much, didn't he? I like it too. Pork bone noodles. But I can never eat a whole big bowl by myself. My brain was puzzled, dulling my senses. It might have been a defense mechanism, to diminish the fear I was feeling to non-traumatizing levels. With the fear being diminished, the fog enveloping my mind was cleared away. Then I could understand what Reina was saying and started to put meaning behind her words. Even so, my fear had subsided completely. It was like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, eyes closed so I didn't have to look down. It didn't actually solve any of my basic problems. I slowly took a step backwards, and as I withdrew, Reina advanced. Please go away. I do not like this. So Keiichi-kun, can you open this? We can eat dinner together. I'm sure it's going to be delicious, so okay? Reina's pale, slender fingers squirmed through the cracking door one at a time, as if they had a mind of their own, rattling the chain. If she had unlatched the chain from the door, a feeling of terror would have just exploded within me. But Reina didn't do that. She was simply imploring me to remove the chain. She was doing her hardest to light the fuse to the powder keg in my heart. Don't open the door. Don't do it. Trying again and again. Clatter, clatter. But it doesn't light. It doesn't light. Open up, Keiichi-kun? Say no thank you and close the door. Please go away. I beg you. Please go away. How can you say something so mean? I wonder. Please go away. Go away. Go away. The powder keg inside me finally went off. No smoldering, it just exploded. I tackled the door. The force thought through the door had knocked Reina momentarily off balance. I couldn't hesitate here. I grabbed onto the doorknob with both hands, planting my feet firmly, and pulled with all my might. But that slamming sound I so desired didn't happen. I could feel a tiny, disturbing bit of resistance keeping the door from closing, and that source of that was Reina's fingers. Each of those fingers wriggling, squirming around like the tendrils of a carnivorous plant through the crack in the doorway. It hurts, Keiichi-kun, it hurts! It wasn't a harsh shriek, but more of a yelp she was trying to keep back. Go away, go away, go away! I kept on pulling on the door with all my might. I didn't even realize that if I didn't loose my pull on the door at least momentarily, Reina wouldn't be able to pull her fingers out. And that was why the door wasn't closing. It really hurts, Keiichi-kun. I'm sorry if I was messing around too much. I didn't care one bit for her apology. No matter how much she apologized, it didn't change any of what she had done up till now. It didn't change anything. It hurts. I'm sorry. Go away, go away, go away! Reina couldn't leave even if she wanted to because I trapped her fingers. Reina's white fingers had become deep red and were no longer even squirming. I'm sorry. Go away, go away, go away. I'm sorry. Reina's apologies were occasionally twisted with pain, but like a broken record, she was intent on repeating it over and over. Go away, go away, go away. Stop it. I pulled on the door even harder. Finally, Reina's fingers were somehow able to slip out from their imprisonment in the doorway. The moment that happened, the door closed soundly, and I could hear the thud of Reina falling on her butt on the other side. I locked the door immediately. I made a loud clunk, voicing my rejection to Rihanna. I'm sorry. Keiichi-kun. I'm sorry. Open up, Keiichi-kun. Reina leaned against the door, apologizing profusely and nothing else. After confirming that I was sufficiently sealing off for her, I trudged away from the entryway. On the other side, I could still hear Reina echoing her apology. I'm sorry. Those pitiful words, they would be forever seeking my forgiveness. I didn't feel bad about this at all. That wasn't out of any sort of malice. I felt a sort of hazy sense of relief that I was able to escape from Reina. Before, Mion had threatened me at the doorway, saying there was nothing she didn't know. And just now, at the same place, Reina told me the same thing. My feeble attempts to disguise the fact my parents weren't home had served no purpose from the start. I should have just pretended to be out, not even opened the door. The maker plans hadn't helped at all. In Hinamizawa, it was impossible to outwit them. Even though I was on the other side of the door, I wanted to get as far away from Reina as possible. 1 step, 2 steps. With each one, her sniveling apologies became more distant. I sprinted up the stairs and dove into my room. As you would expect, I was finally no longer able to hear Reina repeating her endless apologies. Diving into my bed, I was startled by the large, hard lump I felt. There was something in my bed. It's the phone. It was the receiver. I finally remembered. I was in the middle of a call with Oishi-san. Looking at the clock, apparently not much time had passed since I went downstairs. Could it be that my clock had run out of batteries? I had talked with Reina for so long. How did almost no time pass? The hand on the clock was ticking forward 1 second every second, as usual. As I put the still warm receiver to my ear, time, which felt frozen, began moving once again. Hello, Oishi-san? Sorry to keep you waiting. No, none at all. I didn't wait that long. It became apparent that the amount of time that had passed between myself and Oishi-san was different. Over the phone, I could hear an energetic voice from a sports program or something. It drove home just how far away Oishi-san really was. Reina came just now. Did she come to play? I wasn't confident that I could coherently explain the situation to Oishi-san, but I didn't need to right now. Right now, I needed to know about Reina. That's right, I was planning to ask Oishi-san more about Reina, but Reina's little visit had interrupted the conversation. What was true and what was false, I couldn't tell. The thing I know was the single grim reality that Reina was suspicious. I might be able to figure something out if I asked Oishi-san about her. Up until now, I had regretted it whenever I forced myself to ask about things that I was better off not knowing. But looking at that way now, you could say I'd hit rock bottom. There was no possible way I could feel any more regret than I did right now. No, rather, I wanted to know if there was anything beyond this point I would regret more. Forget about tomorrow wasn't out of my realm of possibility for something to happen tonight. I wanted to know everything I could. I was absolutely not going to die like this. Not without knowing anything. I definitely won't. Regarding Reina Ryugu-san, I did a little bit of digging. Yeah, well, it wasn't much. I understand that Oishi-san was talking in circles. A bit, meaning I dug so deep it'd be hard to discuss with you since you're her friend. I want to know everything from your research. I don't think you'd be very interested in what I have to say, though. Oishi-san. I spoke as calmly as possible to Oishi-san, who was continuing to avoid the issue. And then I said it. I think Reina Ryugu is suspicious. Even if the past evidence were from Oyashira's curse, Reina Ryugu is involved. Do you have some sort of proof that makes you believe Reina-san is suspicious? The manner in which Oishi-san spoke became very firm. Do you have some sort of proof? That was him talking as a detective. I only have circumstantial evidence. I see. I could tell even when he was over the phone how disappointed Oishi-san was. Pulling on the fishing line, then he felt a bite, only to reel in the bait. Disappointed, but ready to cast the line once more. That's how it seemed. Oishi-san, you can't do anything without physical proof, can you? What I mean was you can't come and save me without proof. I stuck that part in there. As Oishi-san loved roundabout ways of saying things, he understood me just fine. It's fine, Maebara-san. I'll protect you. That was not the least bit reassuring. Oishi-san was just using me to continue his investigation. I was just going to get killed, and my corpse would be an important piece of evidence. That was all I was to him. Whether I'm alive or dead may be of no concern to your investigation, but it's all over for me when I die. Oishi-san went silent on the other end of the line. I may have been too blunt, but I didn't care. All I needed to relay to Oishi-san was that I was currently in a very dangerous position. So please, tell me. Tell me about Reina. Satoshi transferred out, not too far in the future. I'll probably also do what Reina called transferring out as well. But you won't be able to find my corpse. You haven't even been able to find Satoshi's body yet. Alright, Maebara-san, please calm down. I was already suppressing my agitation, even without Oishi-san having to tell me. Wouldn't solve anything if I continued to scream about my mistrust in the police. It would seem that I could only depend on myself and the bat Satoshi-san left behind to protect myself. Then I had at least wanted to know about what happened before Reina transferred schools. You're aware this won't be very interesting, right? Oishi-san, realizing my resolve couldn't be swayed, finally caved. Right now, to me, there is nothing that I find uninteresting. Please, there are a few things I need you to agree to, okay? Please keep this confidential. Also, a part of this may be speculation. Not all of it may be true, but are you still interested? It might not be true? I don't understand what you mean. There isn't one main investigation for the mysterious chain of events in Hinamizawa. Each one is treated as its own individual case. Thus, Reina Ryugu has never been linked to any of these investigations. Basically, you see, this isn't an investigation of Reina done by the police, and is a personal inquiry, is what you're telling me. This will make things a lot quicker since you understand. All of it is from either phone calls or meetings and interviews, so they aren't corroborated. I'm asking you to take this all with a grain of salt, is what I mean. Do we have an agreement? All of it is just from what you've heard? Yes, my apologies. It's all my personal investigation, you see. That thing, before you said you saw Reina's chart, didn't you? I'm sure I heard you say it. Oishi-san paused for a moment at the other end of the line. I told you that too? Please pretend you didn't hear anything about that. I didn't care about Oishi-san having certain obligations and responsibilities. I also didn't care if there was no proof. Even if they were just rumors, there's no smoke without fire after all. Please tell me, Oishi-san. Understood. Oishi-san finally opened those tight lips of his. It seemed that Reina lived in Hinamizawa a long time ago. She had moved to Ibaraki Prefecture after she finished elementary school. Then, following that, right after transferring, the unfortunate incident with the breaking of the school windows happened. Then Reina confided to the doctor. It was Oyashiro-sama. That was all that he knew. There isn't much difference between what I know and what you know, Maibara-san. Then what part did you investigate further? I didn't need to ask. It was the incident that happened just after she transferred. The incident Reina was responsible for, what she divulged to the doctor afterwards, correct? Yes. After you learned about that, you started suspecting Reina and the others, didn't you? Yes, I did suspect them. So they're the ones after all? No, that's not what I meant by suspect them. Ushi-san was the type of person to say things with confidence, but these particular words were less than reassuring. Then who did you suspect? That it was Oyashiro-sama. Huh? That Oyashiro-sama's curse really exists. Yeah, right, well... Ushi-san's laugh was quite dry, certainly not the kind that would make you want to join in. Ushi-san resumed the conversation. About the dubious circumstances behind Satoshi's disappearance. The course of events up until the start of delving into Reina's past. Just then, there was thunder in the distance, and a heavy rain started pouring down. It came without warning, rain so heavy it felt like it could beat you down. I had left the window of my room open a crack to let the heat out. The violent wind danced in my room, making the curtains flap wildly. What is it? Nothing. It started raining heavily. Sorry, please continue. I got up while still on the phone and closed the window. I said at the beginning it was an incident, but because neither the school nor the victims filed charges, the police were never involved. So you see, those involved were very reluctant to talk, regardless of there being a victim who had one eye beaten so badly that it had permanent damage. I could have been the school or possibly some individual who made arrangements to keep this from going public. Also, the psychologist was very strict about their professional ethics. Hello? Maibara-san, can you hear me? There was the figure of a person standing by the light near the mailbox this whole time. Even in this torrential rain, they didn't have an umbrella. They were unquestionably drenched from head to toe. In this shower, which more resembled a waterfall, droplets of water dripped down from her hair. Just standing there, both arms dangling at her side. In one hand was a stack of boxes, wrapped in cloth. Her eyes focused on my room, focused on me as I was about to close the window. Her mouth was methodically repeating a chewing motion. It was as if she had something hard to chew in her mouth, with her cheeks puffing out. What could she be eating over there? How could it be that at this time I was more enthralled by Reina instead of the shocking developments being brought to light by Oishi-san? If I hadn't started raining, I wouldn't have gone to the window. Then I wouldn't have noticed the Reina, nor would I have noticed that. Reina's mouth was moving in the same pattern. She wasn't eating something. She was repeating something. What was it? Was she repeating to me? What was she saying? Why was I right up against the window, fixated on her? Hello? Maibara-san, can you hear me? Hello? I'm sorry. Huh, Maibara-san? I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Hello? Maibara-san? What's the matter? Even as the torrential downpour, Reina was still apologizing. The other self inside me drew the curtain hastily with my right hand, blocking my view of the outside. But even doing that, Reina's relentless apology still reached my ears. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. If I forgive you for this, will you forgive me for that? Please stop, please stop, please stop, please stop. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Damn it. Why did I have to forgive her? I'm the one who wants to be forgiven. What part of me can't you forgive? I won't be killed. If you won't forgive me, then I won't forgive you either. I won't forgive, won't forgive, won't forgive, won't forgive, won't forgive, won't forgive, won't forgive. I won't forgive. Maibara-san, if you can hear me, then please respond. Hello? He's going nuts. Which, I mean, if that happened to me, I couldn't say I wouldn't be going nuts either. Because, oh damn. Whew. That's the end of the chapter. Wow. Wow. Okay. I'm gonna read these tips real quick. Split personality. I see it in movies quite often, but what is it exactly? Multiple personalities are thought to be escapism. Multiple personality disorder is a form of escape? Correct. The exact mechanism is not fully understood, but it's believed to be the type of defense for the brain to retain mental stability. Hypothetically, poor people imagining themselves as wealthy is a form of escapism, is it not? Is this also a form of multiple personality disorder? I wouldn't go that far, but broadly speaking, one could infer that. It's something that occurs in us all. Does a split personality occur when one cannot tell which is reality and which is the escape? That's difficult to say. There are some who agree with that, some who disagree. There is no consensus. Then, is the occurrence of multiple personalities still an unknown phenomenon, something not fully comprehended in the psychiatric field? Unfortunately, that is the current state of things. We can only put our hope in the future research. But it's sort of cool having a split personality. What kind of people get split personalities? Recent studies find that those who develop it, or rather those who are more susceptible to developing it, may be genetically predisposed or may have had abnormal mental development. Some say that childhood abuse increases the chances. Speaking of which, Person A here experienced abuse of a child, didn't he? How sad. Person A has 7 different personalities. Let's watch a video of him. Right after these commercials. That's definitely something I would expect out of this game. Have something super serious goes on, and then just like a random, haha, like in your face kind of thing. Seventh Mark was a bargain supermarket with food and alcohol. What's this, Keiichi? So many. There's no reason to get all the different kinds, is there? I flopped all the different colored cup noodle bolts into the cart. Cup noodles have gotten so elaborate recently, and there are a bunch of different types. I want to try each of them at least once. I knew it was pretty selfish of me, but I thought I'd at least give it a try. Keiichi, buy them in the big case, it's cheaper. Dad faltered. Well, I had a feeling it'd end up like this. Dad knew there was no point in him butting in. Then I'd only get to eat one kind. I get bored with it. I was resisting as a formality. I had already given up inside. I wasn't sure which case of noodles to get. If you can't pick, the mommy will pick for you. You don't have to rush me. I quickly searched the cases of noodles for what I want. Pork bun and ginger, a large cup? Hey Keiichi, can't you get a more normal one? If I let Mom pick, she'd err on the side of safety and get soy sauce or salt flavored. Pork bun is good. I don't want a big bowl of tasteless stuff. I remembered insisting that the noodles I picked were the right kind. In this frozen memory in time, this encapsulated word, I didn't have the power to look around my surroundings. So I did what I could and reached out with my hearing and vision, sharpening my senses to find the presence I overlooked. No matter how much I searched through the field of my vision, I couldn't see Reina. I rewound the situation, searching, but of course, I couldn't find her. Then, she was spying on me from my blind spot. I go through the sound and presences again, looking. I could sense the other customers. They were all mixed about, moving as they pleased. There was nobody looking over this way and no one trying to get behind me. Not here. Couldn't be here. Probably wasn't here. I would definitely notice if someone was right behind me, even when I wasn't on my guard. I smiled wryly at the thought of using a vague word like probably right before contradicting it with definitely. Then I paused my mental replay as a chill ran down my spine. There was definitely a presence like a shadow behind me. There was a terror unlike any other. If a presence really had manifested behind me, I could definitely have turned around to check for it. But the world had moved on. There was no way for me to turn around. While carrying that frightening shadow on my back, I was gleefully running around the store searching for a case of noodles. Running through the instant noodle section, bad-mouthing my mom. But there was that presence constantly on my back, sticking to me like a shadow. No way to see what it was. Realizing it now after the fact was horrifying and repulsive. In the moment of time, I was running around gleefully, carrying that cardboard box. Tip-tap. Listening to that moment again, I could hear footsteps other than mine going pit-pat with every step. Tip-tap, tip-tap, tip-tap. Pit-pat, pit-pat, pit-pat. Tip-tap, tip-tap. Pit-pat, pit-pat. Tip-tap, tip-tap. Pit-pat, pit-pat. While I was running, the sound of those barefoot footsteps going pit-pat were right behind me. She was barefoot? Me running around gleefully in that closed-off moment in time, but I didn't hear it. No, I heard it. That's why I remembered it. I didn't think I had heard anything. That's why I didn't turn around. That is why I didn't turn around. In that moment, the pit-pat of those footsteps were following me the entire time. I couldn't run faster and escape. I couldn't run any faster than I had ran at that time. I couldn't turn around. I hadn't turned around before. Not once. Then I returned to my parents and started talking. The shadow-like presence was right at my back. Since I didn't move, the shadow didn't move. That is why it made no sound. That was all. At that time, I hadn't taken a single step while talking with my parents. I was just standing there. This was undeniable, and yet I heard it. A pit-pat. That shouldn't be. If I took 3 steps, it followed 3 steps. Wasn't that the rule? There was no sound other than that. At the time, the entire world had gone dark, a sudden darkness. It was the end of my reflective journey. I was tired. I wanted to end it. Someone turned on the light. Except my body couldn't move, as if I was sewn into that moment in time. Pit-pat. My past self's hair stood on end. That's impossible. Now that's just breaking the rules. I haven't moved, so you shouldn't be moving either. I couldn't move, so you shouldn't be able to move either. Follow the rules. Pit-pat. Yet that sound echoed in the darkness once again. The hair on my back of my neck prickled up on one end. It was so close that it was hard to tell whether it was touching the hair or not. Why couldn't I move, like how the presence was moving behind me? I quickly realized I could move. It's just that I was scared and didn't want to. But now was the only time I could turn around. It was something unforgivable in this moment in time. But I needed to turn around immediately. As if my entire being was trying to force me to stop, I began to administer a pain. It began to minister a pain like a needle being stuck into my every pore. I'll turn around. I'm not scared at all. I'll turn around. I'm not scared at all. The scream I was unable to vocalize. I turn around. At first I couldn't understand the meaning of it. What is this? The situation in front of my eyes. It was like a mouth biting an apple and slurping the juice, the way you would do with an apple. My mind was being eaten. It began to munch down, slurping the juices because it was like an apple, meaning what was in front of me was what the what 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 was that? What is going on? Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. So what the fuck? First of all, what the fuck? Oh my god. So I just got the detective achievement, which means you read all of the tips in this game. So I'm assuming this next chapter is the last chapter, right? I'm pretty sure. So, because there's only tips in between each chapter. So I'm assuming the next chapter is the last chapter. So, oh boy, someone's gonna die, and I'm hoping it's not gonna be me. But I have a feeling it's gonna be me. So, whew, that was really, really intense, like the whole way through. Like, none of that was happy. Like, and when it was happy, it turned real dark, real quick. Whew, I am scared for my life once more. Whew. So I wonder what the actual truth is. I don't think it's going to tell us the whole truth by the end, but I think we are going to figure some stuff out. So it'll definitely be an interesting, thing to see the end of this particular arc. Whew, it's been a trip. But next week I will finish out, this chapter of Higurashi, and I may decide to keep going with it, or I may decide to switch to the other game I was playing. But, either way, I am going to continue this in the future. It's really fun and interesting for me, and it also makes me